produce the bewilderment of which Castells writes so eloquently. But how many big ideas? In thinking about this, I was reminded of a celebrated paper by the psychologist George Miller of Princeton University. Its title was The Magical Number 7 plus or minus 2, Some Limits on Our Capacity for Processing Information. And it was based on a talk he gave on the 15th of April, 1955, to the Eastern Psychological Association in Philadelphia, and published the following year in the journal Psychological Review. Miller's objectives when he gave the talk were pretty modest. He simply set out to summarize some earlier psychological experiments which attempted to measure the limits of people's short-term memory. In each case, he reported that the effective channel capacity lay between 5 and 9 equally weighted choices. Miller did not draw any firm conclusions from this, though, and contented himself by merely conjecturing that the recurring sevens might represent something deep and profound, or be just coincidence. And that, he probably thought, was that. But he underestimated the appetite of popular culture for anything with the word magical in the title. Instead of being known as a mere aggregator of research results, Miller found himself identified as a kind of sage, a discoverer of a profound truth about human nature. "My problem," he wrote, "is that I have been persecuted by an integer. For 7 years this number has followed me around, has intruded in my most private data, and has assaulted me from the pages of our most public journals. This number assumes a variety of disguises, being sometimes a little larger and sometimes a little smaller than usual, but never changing so much as to be unrecognizable. The persistence with which this number plagues me is far more than a random accident. There is, to quote a famous senator, probably Joseph McCarthy, a design behind it, some pattern governing its appearances. Either there really is something unusual about the number, or else I am suffering from delusions of persecution." But in fact, the basic idea that emerges from the 1956 paper still seems useful. The idea is that our short-term memory can only hold between 5 and 9 chunks of information at any given time, where a chunk is defined as a meaningful unit. So when I was trying to decide how many big ideas about the internet would be meaningful for most readers, it seemed sensible to settle for George Miller's magical number, 7 ideas plus or minus 2. And from that decision, everything else followed. So what are these ideas? There are 9, each of which has a chapter to itself. Number 1. Take the long view. We're in the midst of a major upheaval in our information environment, and none of us has any real idea of where it will end up. So we need to put it into perspective. As it happens, Johannes Gutenberg triggered a comparable revolution 5.5 centuries ago when he introduced printing by movable type. His invention shaped the world into which the internet was born. What can we learn from that experience? Number 2. The web is not the net. The World Wide Web is vast and important, but it's not the internet. Nor is Google the internet, nor is Facebook. These are just 3 of the things that run on the internet's infrastructure. The network is bigger and more important than any of the applications or services that it supports. It's vital that governments, policymakers, and users understand this because... Number 3. For the net, disruption is a feature, not a bug. Why has the internet triggered such an explosion of innovation and creativity? The answer lies deep in its architecture and in the principles that underpinned its original design. The architects of the network effectively created a global machine for springing surprises, so disruptive innovation is, in a way, what the internet was designed to foster. Some of the surprises it has sprung on us have been pleasant, others less so. But the only way we will stop them coming is either to switch off the network or to cripple it in ways that will staunch the creative flow. Number 4. Think ecology, not just economics. We need new intellectual frameworks, new tools for thinking to understand what's going on. Economics is usually the discipline of choice for thinking about major shifts in behavior, and it has its uses in thinking about the internet, especially in relation to regulation.